Hey guys, Corey with Faymus Media, and today we're here in the dark looking at the Sony A7s. So guys, a big shout out going to borrowlenses.com for hooking me up with this stuff. Fantastic. I'm also going to put my link down there if you want to rent any of the gear I review. I'm an affiliate there. Get you guys good deals. You can rent all your equipment. Check them out, borrowlenses.com. So here we are, Times Square, looking at the Sony A7s, which is perfect in low light, and it's kind of drizzling out, but I really wanted to do it tonight in a dark area. Times Square is back this way about a block and a half. I just wanted to come over here where it's not too bright and really test this camera. But first I want to explain to you why this camera is so good in low light. Pixel density. Now, the D800 from Nikon has a pixel density of about 4 micrometers. That means it's really small. And the area is about 23. The pixel area is about 23 micrometers. The D4 has got a better area of about 7 micrometer pixel density with an area of about 50 micrometers. The larger the area, the larger the pixel measurement, the better in low light. Well, the Sony A7s has got a pixel area of just under 70 micrometers, and the pixel density is over 8 micrometers. So that means theoretically it's going to have twice the low light, almost twice the low light capabilities of the D4S, and it's going to have 3 times the low light capabilities of the D800E. It does 5 frames a second in photo mode, down to -4 EV with its 25 autofocus points. The ISO range is 100 all the way to 102,400, expandable from 50 all the way to 409,000. Now I can tell you that if we crank the ISO on this camera right here, it's going to overexpose the image like it's during the day, and we're going to have to stop the lens down to f11, which we just tested with my videographer. So the camera's fantastic. It only weighs about 450 grams, 460 grams. It's really light. If you're wondering what I'm shooting on, it's the 24-70 Vario for the APS-C Alpha cameras, the Alpha 99, the DSLRs. What I've got is the Sony A mount to E mount converter because they didn't have one for Canon. So now back to the camera. It feels great in the hands. It is super light. I want to touch base on something, just in case you're wondering. The Panasonic GH4 will do Ultra HD, not DCI, but Ultra HD, which is 3840 by 2160 internally. This will not, it'll only do 1080p. The output on this for 4K is going to be Ultra HD through HDMI at 8-bit 422, whereas the Panasonic GH4 outputs full DCI 4K at 8 or 10-bit 422. Now here's the thing. If you don't need the low light and you're just looking at shooting 4K internally, the GH4 may be the better option for you. But if you're looking for low light capabilities and/or if you're going to be buying an external recorder, this is the better camera for many reasons, because the low light capabilities being one of them, and the fact that it can shoot up to 120 frames a second. Now, if you're going to be buying a recorder, no sense getting the GH4 because you're going to be able to do 4K on both. So if you're getting an external recorder, the Sony is the way to go due to the low light. It will crush, and I mean crush, the GH4. It's not even a comparison. We're talking like total domination here. The Sony A7s is the best low light camera in the world, in the universe. In fact, there'll never be a better camera than this, I guarantee it. And if there is, I would love to shoot on that one, because the Sony A7s is a monster of monsters. It's better than all my beloved Nikons. So this is an amazing camera. I was shooting a wedding last night. It was pitch black. I had all kinds of lights set up for my Blackmagic cameras. So what I did is I turned this one on, and I had to turn the ISO down. So I was shooting at like f4 at 400 ISO because the sensitivity is so great. But I'm sure you don't want to sit here and listen to me blah, 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 blah about the camera. I can sum it all up. Fantastic camera, and I'm going to show you how fantastic it is. Let's get started and let's shoot in pitch black streets here and just show you what this camera can do. So at 120 frames a second, it gives you 5 times slow-mo at 24p. You only get that while shooting 720p, and it crops the sensor to APS-C. So you're gonna get 5 times slow-mo in 24p, which is great. And the XAVCS codec is fantastic with the Sony S-Log, which is amazing dynamic range. I recommend shooting in the picture profile 7 using the S-Log gamut. That is the best way to shoot on the Sony A7s. I've also got the detail sharpness cranked a little bit up because it's a little soft if you don't crank it up. But other than that, it's fantastic. So here we go, I'm turning her on. We're shooting at 3200 ISO at 2.8, and I'm probably gonna look at the histogram here. We're probably gonna have to turn it down and post a little bit. It may even overexpose. We have to shoot it at 4. That's how good and how sensitive this camera is. To give you an example, the footage we're shooting on now, we're at 400 ASA at 1.8 on the Sigma 1835. So you figure this camera is so great in low light. There's no noise here, but let's go ahead and shoot. Gonna do a slow-mo test first. Gonna go to 120 frames. So here we go. It's got focus peaking, which is not as good as the Blackmagic camera, but it's good. And the fact that you can change the color and the fact that it even has it to begin with is great. Go figure, they're honking at me and they've got 5 empty lanes, but they want to drive in the one we're shooting in. New York for you. Amazing slow-mo, I'll guarantee it. Wait for the light to turn green, get a few more shots. I love how it feels. I mean, I'm gonna buy one. I've got Blackmagic cameras, Nikon D810, D800E, D4S, all kinds of stuff, but I'm still gonna buy this because it fits somewhere that the other cameras don't, which is being able to shoot in a black hole without all kinds of noise. You'll probably never use noise reduction again while shooting on this camera, unless of course you're shooting, you know, over 100,000 ISO, because let's be realistic. We don't expect, I know I don't expect this camera to be noise-free at 100,000 ISO. I guarantee there'll be some sort of noise. How bad? Don't know, we're gonna find out. I'm gonna do one more slow-mo shot because I really wanna test this 120 frames out. Let's see if I can catch somebody walking. We're gonna get on the sidewalk right here. I'm sure we'll get more opportunities here at the light. I'll do one more slow-mo test and then I'm gonna turn the f-stop down to like f11 and we're gonna crank the ISO to like 12,800 and show you how clean it is. And we're shooting in Sony's S-Log, picture profile 7 of course, which is just bloody amazing if you ask me. About the same dynamic range as the Nikon D810, which is fantastic, except the codec, the video codec is much better and much easier to grade. Perfect, we got those couple running across the street. Sony has always been good with slow motion. Look at the FS700U. So we're gonna take it off slow-mo for now and just crank the ISO a bit. Let's go down to 24p. Of course, we're gonna stay in the great codec, the XAVCS, because it's the highest bitrate, but you can shoot MP4 and lower different bitrate codecs. Like, I'll go down here and show you guys. You can shoot in XAVCS or AVC HD, which is a pretty good codec. Not as good as the XAVCS, of course, but MP4, obviously the lowest quality of the three. I'm staying in the top one because I want the best quality here. Here we are at 24p, 3200 ISO. And some of the lights here are actually blowing out. So I'm gonna go ahead and, after I do this recording, I'm gonna go ahead and stop it down to F4. So I'm gonna get it down now, just stop recording here. We're at F8, still not dark enough. Gonna go to F9 and turn the ISO up to 12,800. Man, this image is spotless. You would have to hire a forensic technician to try to find noise in this image. And I guarantee you, it'll be like a Where's Waldo incident. There is no noise in this image. Forgive me, this lens doesn't have IS or VR or VC or any of the lens manufacturers' abbreviations for image stabilization, and it's freaking cold out here. It's about 40 degrees, so we're doing it for you, so please forgive me for the handshake. And if the footage is a little shaky, I apologize. But this is 12,800. I'm gonna go ahead and start another clip, and we're gonna record this one across the street. We're just gonna keep cranking and stopping it down. Pretty soon we're gonna be at F22. So here we are at F11. Gonna crank the ISO to 25,600, and it truly is night to day, because I'm getting image quality of what the D810 would get at 800 ISO, and I'm at 25,600, F11. You heard me right, the middle of the night I'm shooting at F11. Perfectly good image right here. 25,600 ISO. I got my buttons customized so I can check my focus magnification with the C2 button, the custom button by the dial on the rear side of the screen, beside the viewfinder. So how much better can we do? Well, that's a good question. I'm about ready to answer it for you. So we're gonna stop down to F16. F16 on the streets at night. Is there something wrong with that image? F16 at night? My videographer's about to have a heart attack. Just the thought of F16 at nighttime would make a videographer's hair stand on end. Well, actually, mine is standing on end. Before I made the joke, it was already standing on end, but if it wasn't, it would be anyway. But F16 at night, are we nuts? Have I lost my mind or something? F16 in the middle of the night? Well, here we go. 51,200, and it looks like, you know, any other camera would at 1600 ISO. Let's make it look night to day. After I do this video, I'm gonna shoot the highest ISO I can. It'll make it look like it's daytime out. I like how the lights look in this camera that's dynamic range with its S-Log. It just looks really good. Skin tones look really good too. Now we're gonna crank the ISO even more. We got a little bit of water on the lens. No good. So here we are, 51,200. We'll do a shot, and then I'm gonna crank it even more. What am I, nuts? Crank it above 51,200. We're shooting at F16. I'm sure you already knew that. I've said a bunch of times. So here we are at F16 at 102,400. Man, it's getting a little noisy now. How noisy, I won't be able to tell until we get it on the screen. But the fact that you can shoot at 102,400, maybe use a little noise reduction possibly, opens up a world of possibilities. Then again, we're here at nighttime at f/16. What do you expect? Just for fun, we're gonna crank it to 204,000. So here we are at 204,000. It is insane. Got to crank the f-stop down again. We're going down to f/22. Crank the ISO to 409,000. EOS EF or EF-S lens adapter, which will basically put all your Canon lenses onto the NEX. It's the Canon EF to NEX Metabones adapter. Use all your Canon glass on this, because that's another downfall, is there's not a lot of good NEX glass. There's a lot of Alpha mount lenses, but the NEX lenses are, you know, not that great. There's only like one 24-70, it's an f4. So if you want a 2.8, you want fast lenses, you already have a lot of Canon glass, which I'm sure a lot of the guys watching this probably shoot on Canon or Blackmagic and want to use that glass, and a lot of the other guys on here probably shooting on Nikon. So the Metabones adapters are your best friend, or if you are shooting on a Minolta or a Sony, get the Alpha to NEX mount, and you can use all your Alpha mount lenses on the NEX camera. So that's a great way to set it all up. Man, is it bloody cold out here. Feels a lot colder than it really is. I guess almost reminds me of that review I did at Rockefeller Center on the D610 last Christmas. So we're here in Midtown, New York. The festivities are screaming, it's beautiful, everybody's running around with the holiday cheer, but that's not what this video is about. I figured it'd be great scenery though. However, yeah, that was a cold day. Almost makes me feel like it's summertime now because of how cold that day was. But it's still cold today though. But we're out here for you. The camera will automatically go into APS-C mode when you put an APS-C lens on. So this Alpha to NEX mount allows you to still use your autofocus. All the electronics are intact. It's made by Sony. So if you want to put your Alpha to NEX adapter on, you're going to still keep all your autofocusing capabilities, especially if you want to be able to use all your Alpha mount glass on this NEX camera. So here we're going to look over the camera. On the side, you got your headphone and your microphone jack. And of course, your HDMI output. You got the tiltable screen in the back, your menu button right above it. You got your dial here, and if you press this to the left, when you're in live view like you're recording, it'll change your frames, per second in your timer, only in photo view, live view, not in movie recording. When you're in movie recording, you can use the display up button right here to figure out what you want to display on the screen. The audio meters, the different picture styles, white balance settings, or you can clear the screen and just show your histogram. If you hit right on the D-pad, you have your different white balances that you can scroll through. Then you got your play and your trash button, which are self-explanatory. The trash button is also your custom 3 button. Your FN button is right here. The record button right here is in a very weird spot if you ask me, but it's whatever. Right here you've got your autofocus, manual focus, and your auto exposure lock. You can customize this. I customized it myself for focus peaking, as you can see right there on the screen. I'm turning it on and off. You can change that to any color you want. That is basically a great feature on this camera that I'm glad they implemented, was the focus peaking. Right above it is the rear dial, which changes your shutter speed. And then of course, to the top, we're shooting in movie mode, but you can go to scene recognition or auto, aperture, shutter priority, manual, all your different settings, which is typical in most cameras anyway. Your on and off is right here. Your shutter button is on the top. This is your exposure compensation dial. Your custom 1 button is on the top, and the front dial right here changes your aperture. If you open this is your card slot right here. I do recommend using SanDisk Extreme Pro, otherwise you won't be able to record an XAVCS. Now we're going to go ahead and go into the menu by pressing the menu button. And you use the rear dial here to control your shutter. That controls the menu. This is all your photography stuff right here. Different settings for your aspect ratio and quality. You're going to go over to number 2, and this is your record setting where you can go between 60, 30, 24, or 120p. And you use the dial to go through. You can go down here, your flash compensation and some other things to do with photography. You're going to scroll over to the right. You got your focus area, which you can change from flexi spot to zone to center. These are basically all the different types of focusing settings you can use while shooting video. There's all kinds of them. We're gonna go down to the focus settings right here where you can change right on the screen. It's like a quick menu. I usually just gonna leave mine in flexi spot. So here we go. Gonna go to the next menu. Your ISO, you can change your metering mode, your white balance, and your picture effect, which I've customized to go to my custom 3 button. Same with the picture profile. I've got a shortcut for that. I got the high ISO noise reduction on normal, but you can turn it to low. You got some more autofocus settings and smile face detection, which is for photography mode. More settings right here. Most importantly is the audio recording and audio recording level. Oops, let me go back to that. There we go. Audio recording on, your audio recording level here, which you can change to 24, 28, I think it goes up to 28. Let me just check here. It's like 28 or 29, 31. Really loud at 31 depending on where you're shooting. I usually keep mine around 16 unless I'm shooting a wedding, which I'll turn it down to like 8. So we're gonna go ahead and go to the last menu. Audio out timing, wind noise reduction, which is great. I don't have that on now, which I should, but no biggie. We're gonna go ahead and go to the next menu here. Zebras you can turn on. It's got shadow and highlight zebras, which is amazing. Manual focus assist, you got your grid lines you can put on, different marker display settings. Audio level display is on, your peaking color can be changed. Your level can be off, low, mid, or high. And it can be red, yellow, or white. I like yellow. You can turn your monitor from Finder to Monitor or Auto. I don't like Auto because every time you try to lift the camera or put your hand in front of it to change a setting, the viewfinder turns on. So I set it to Monitor so the viewfinder will stay off like it's supposed to, especially for video. Some more settings here, release shutter with a lens, all different types of settings for photography, which we're gonna move past for right now. Your bracketing order, which is more stuff for photography. Right here you got some more settings, video lighting modes you can change, your function menu set, and your custom key settings. That's the important part right here. You pick out which button you wanna customize. Like right here, you got your auto exposure lock button, which is Me, I got it set to my creative style picture mode. We're gonna go back here. My custom button 2, I want it to be focus magnifier, so you select that and you select exactly what you want to set for your custom button. So it's really cool. Going to the last menu, you've got your movie button on always. Of course, you want that to stay there so you can record. You can send photos to smartphone or to your computer. More access settings for Wi-Fi. This is your playback settings for photography, rotate, tall, stuff like that for like your images. And of course, we're gonna go in here to the main settings for your video brightness, your viewfinder, audio signals, tile menu, just different types of settings for your display. Your brightness, your display will be in here too. Your HDMI settings, this is where you're gonna set your 4K output, which we don't have today, unfortunately. USB connection, date and time, self-explanatory. The last 2 settings here, format and file number.
So here we go, guys, with a low light test in APS-C crop mode with the Sony 24-70 f2.8. Of course, there's no noise at 400 or 800 or 1600 or even 3200. I don't even know why we did a low light test, but here it is anyway. And as you can see, at ISO 3200, like I said, there's no noise whatsoever. So we're gonna go ahead and move along to ISO 6400, and you guessed it, still no noise. However, pay no attention to those lines. It's because I had the shutter speed to 1/200th because I couldn't stop it down anymore because the sensitivity of the camera is so great. ISO 12,800, slight film grain. 25,600, the grain starts to increase. Still a very clean image. By the time we get to 51,200, reaching the brink of usability, this is about it right here as far as high-res clean images, but you can still use 102,400 for some web videos, home videos if you're in the dark and you need to. ISO 204,800 starts to fall apart, but look how high we're shooting. And at 409,600, it's really falling apart like a cell phone video or something. But here we go. I turned all the lights off in my kitchen and just the stove light, the overhead stove light in the middle of the night, pitch black room, 51,200. Wow. At 204,800, I turned the stove light off, and it's fairly noisy, but we're talking a pitch black room. All that blowout is coming from a little night lamp in the corner. So here we go, 51,200 Nikon D4 versus the A7s. It's slightly more noisy. The A7s has more sensitivity to the light, and by the time we punch it to 204,800, they're both very noisy, but the Nikon D4 is just crummy. Look how clean in APS-C mode the A7s is. So here we go, kicking off the low light test at ISO 400 in full frame mode, which is noticeably cleaner than APS-C mode. I would say about 15 to 20% cleaner on any given shot, so it's pointless to really do a low light test below 12,800. But here we are anyway, so I'm just gonna jibber jabber about the camera. It really is great. No sense in talking about low light ISO, like I said, in anything below 12,800, because you can see there's no noise even at 6,400. Why did I do a low light test in full frame mode? We could shoot a million ISO practically. But all kidding aside, here we are, 12,800. There's still no noise in this image. Moving along to 25,600. Can someone please knock on the noise's door and tell it to come outside for a minute and peek its ugly head? Because we're still not finding any. 51,200. Is there really such thing as noise anymore? 102,400. Noise, where are you? We're waiting for you to come out. We're like wasting our time. 204,800 noise finally turns its head around and looks at us, and it's still very, very slight. And by 409,600, I'm giving this camera a standing ovation and a clap. At 51,200 in full frame mode with just an overhead light on the stove in a pitch black room, it does phenomenal. At 204,800, you can see that it's doing amazing. This is pitch black, no light. Wow. Comparing it to the Nikon D4 in full frame mode, you can see that it's significantly cleaner and more sensitive to low light. At 204,800, the A7s is completely usable, and the Nikon D4 is just falling apart. Let's punch it to 409,600, and as you can see, the Nikon D4 is just going insane over there, and the A7s is spectacular, standing ovation. So here we go with a comparison between the APS-C mode and full frame mode at ISO 6400. Full frame mode is slightly cleaner, and by the time we get to ISO 12,800, it's noticeably cleaner. If you look around the base of the cookie jar on the APS-C shot, you can see that it's got grain, whereas the full frame doesn't. Move along to 25,600, and you can see that it's even cleaner than the previous image, and the APS-C mode is getting noisier, and the full frame mode is not. It's significantly cleaner. Had we been shooting on the streets in full frame mode, the images would be even cleaner than they were, and they were already clean enough. At 102,400, the APS-C mode is getting noisier, full frame still looks beautiful. 204,800, the full frame mode is still a very usable image, although the APS-C mode is starting to become unusable. And by 409,600, you can see full frame and APS-C mode are both unusable, although full frame mode is significantly cleaner. Standing ovation to this camera. So let's go and compare APS-C mode to full frame mode with just an overlight on the stove in a dark room. At 51,200, they're about neck and neck, but full frame is cleaner, as you can see from the grain. Comparing 204,800, the full frame mode is much cleaner in a pitch black room, noticeably cleaner and more usable, of course. Here we go with the dynamic range test. Sony A7s, S-Log ungraded, looks beautiful. It's got to be 13 stops of dynamic range, probably 13 and a half. And when you grade it, it looks gorgeous. It's about on par with the Blackmagic Cinema camera. But let's go ahead and test it side by side with the Nikon D800E, and you can see that it's definitely a flatter, more dynamic range image coming straight out of the camera. However, once you grade them, they're about neck and neck because I was shooting in the flat 12-stop profile for the D800E. And if we crop in 300% to see sharpness, the D800E is noticeably sharper, which means the D810 is going to be significantly sharper than both these cameras. But sharpness isn't everything. So here we go. Sony A7s in APS-C mode at 100% crop. Looks pretty sharp. Let's go ahead and crop in 300%. And as you can see, it's kind of soft on APS-C mode at 300% crop. Let's go ahead and take a look at the full frame mode of this camera and see how sharp it looks at 100%. And I can already tell it's significantly sharper in full frame mode. But let's go ahead and crop in 300% and take a look. And as you can see, it is definitely a lot sharper than shooting in APS-C mode. But don't take my word for it. Let's compare them side by side at 300% crop. And you can see that full frame mode is very noticeably sharper than APS-C mode. So I highly suggest shooting in full frame mode for the best low light capabilities and best sharpness. The Sony A7s is not just a mirrorless camera from Sony, but it's also a film camera in disguise. I kind of think Sony has put this camera together to spite everyone in the film industry because of the fact its low light abilities are not of this world or of this universe. The camera is stunning in every aspect when it comes to shooting in the dark. There isn't a camera today of any manufacturer, and has never been a camera, that can shoot in dark situations like the A7s. And the versatility of this camera is unmatched, with the fact that it can do 120 frames a second and 60 frames a second for slow-mo. It's great in low light, its spectacular codec, which has got amazing dynamic range, all built into a camera that weighs less than 500 grams. And the fact that you can use any type of adapter to put your Nikon and your Canon lenses onto make this a stunning beauty to own. Are you looking for a mirrorless or even a DSLR camera for video? Then there isn't a camera in the universe that will give you the low light abilities of the Sony A7s. So if you're looking to retire your noise reduction plugin and turn night to day shooting on every occasion, the Sony A7s doesn't disappoint, as it's the greatest low light camera ever made.
So guys, the Sony A7s is remarkable. There's nothing really I can say to justify the camera more than the video does for itself. You can shoot at crazy high ISO. Like, look at it behind me. It's really not that bright. We're shooting on a 1.8 lens, the Sigma 18-35 1.8 at 400 ASA, and I'm gonna jump the image in post by at least a stop. And that's what you're looking at right now. This camera is a monster. The fact that it does 1080p at 2430, and it does 60 frames, and it does 120 in 720p. The camera's just over 420 grams, 450 grams. It's really comfortable to hold, and you can put a slew of lenses on it, like the Alpha mount with the adapter, the Canon and Nikon lenses with those Metabones adapters, or just use the Minolta Sony NEX lenses. So you've got all kinds of goodness at your fingertips. It shoots to SD cards, which are relatively inexpensive. Of course, you have to shoot on the SanDisk Extreme Pro or something equivalent of that speed to shoot the XAVCS. But the great thing about this camera is it's low light. It doesn't do internal 4K recording, but with an HDMI recorder, you can record to SSDs like the Atomos recorder coming out, and you're going to get 4K. Now, some people might say, oh, well, it doesn't do 10-bit 422 like the GH4 or DCI 4K. It only does Ultra HD 4K, and it only does 8-bit 422. Here's the thing, if you need low light capabilities, the A7S is the way to go. If you want the high resolution, obviously it's better to go with the GH4. However, the difference in resolution is so slight from DCI to Ultra HD, in my opinion, it's not worth losing the low light capabilities. Now, the GH4 is a phenomenal camera. One of the best mirrorless cameras ever made. And for video, next to this is probably the best. And the reason I say that is because low light is really what I need for weddings. And most guys really want low light. If you're shooting a movie and you've got all the lights in the world and you don't need low light capabilities at all, then you'd be shooting on a Blackmagic camera or something, because that's got the high resolution and the RAW. So in reality, if you're shooting on a mirrorless camera, low light is going to be a concern of yours most likely. The Sony A7S is the way to go. And imagine shooting Ultra HD 3840 by 2160 with the low light capabilities of the A7S. You mount it on the top right here in the hot shoe, and you just go to town. You don't have to worry about mounting a light or anything on this camera. It's just the recorder, get your HDMI cable set, shoot Ultra HD and crank the ISO and enjoy the footage. The A7S is fantastic. It is remarkable in every way. There's no words, like I said before, to describe it. Now, I'm not saying the GH4 is not a great camera. It's got the Micro Four Thirds mount, which is a great lens mount, in my opinion. A little bit better than the NEX mount because there's more available lenses and more Cine lenses out for the MFT. However, with the Alpha to NEX adapter from Sony, you can use all your Minolta lenses, and you can use the Sony A lenses, which are great. You can also get the Metabones Nikon G to NEX or the Canon EF to NEX adapter, which are great to run all your Canon and Nikon G lenses right on the Sony A7S. Just like I said with the Canon 7D, if you're strictly shooting photos, that's the camera to go to, but not for video. For this, if you're shooting photos, stay away from it. But if you're shooting video, and it's between the GH4 and the A7S, it comes down to resolution versus low light. In my opinion, the A7S is the clear winner because of low light. And if you're gonna end up buying an external recorder anyway, then it's definitely the A7S. If you're not gonna buy an external recorder and you need 4K, you have to buy the GH4 because this won't do internal 4K. But if you plan on getting an external recorder no matter what camera you buy, then definitely this one. It makes no sense to get the GH4 because this will do 4K and it's better in low light. I'm still getting over the fact that I was shooting at f/22 in the streets. My videographer just can't believe it. But I'm telling you guys, this is the camera to go to. I'm buying one. I am opening up my camera wardrobe and I'm kicking out one of my cameras in favor of the A7S. It is beautiful. It's better than every camera I own for low light. Better than all of them. Even my beloved Nikon D4S, this just destroys it. So hopefully you found this review helpful, guys. If you want to purchase any of the gear I review, please use the links in the information box to keep the reviews coming. We're out here in the freezing cold, so it really gives us motivation. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm giving a big shout out here, guys, to Boro Lenses, borolenses.com, for giving me this great camera and lens and adapter so that I could do a review on it before it was too late and they'd moved on to the A7S Mark II or something, who knows. But they got me this camera, and as busy as they are, big thanks and shout out going to borolenses.com. Thank you so much for getting me this lens. And if you want to, like I said, guys, buy this camera or any gear I review, please use the links below. I'm freezing right now, and I'm doing it for you guys. Don't forget the Ohio meet and greet. Gonna be in Dayton, November 25th at 3 p.m. at the Dayton Mall. Come meet me. Also, the photo walk here at Grand Central, December 20th, 3 p.m. Make sure you guys are there. Come out, hang out with me. I've done a video on that. Just reminding you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Corey with Faymus Media. Freezing. Happy shooting.